Before the first raindrop ever fell, before the sky knew how to weep, there was a world so ancient even silence has forgotten its name. A world where heaven and earth were not yet strangers to each other. Where the boundary between the divine and the mortal was thin enough to step across. And something did step across, something never meant to touch the ground. Scripture does not shout this story. It whispers it, in fragments, in shadows. In genealogies too strange to be accidental, in names history barely remembers. Enoch walked into eternity and never came back to the world he left. Giants left their bones scattered across the earth like broken monuments to a forgotten war. And a flood came, not as weather, not as accident, but as verdict. Most people read this and see only a story about water. Tonight, we read it and see what the water was sent to erase. If you have ever felt that the Bible holds rooms most people never enter, rooms where the answers are too large for any comfortable sermon, this is the place where seekers gather, not to argue, not to perform faith. They were not demons, not in the way the modern mind imagines demons. They were magnificent, beings of a beauty the earth had never held before. Beings of light so concentrated it bent the air around them. Voices that carried the deep resonance of creation's very first morning. Eyes that had looked upon God and still held the memory of that light. They were called the Watchers, and their purpose, at the beginning, was holy. Appointed to observe the young human race, to guard the fragile experiment of flesh and breath. To stand at the edges of the mortal world and ensure the balance held. For a time, the balance held and the world kept its order. Humanity grew slowly, beautifully, the way a river carves its path, not by force, but by persistence. Villages rose from the soil. Children were born under skies that had not yet learned to weep. But watching has a cost no one had warned them about. Because to watch something long enough is to begin to want it. And what, in a being never designed for want, is the first fracture in an otherwise perfect architecture. It began as curiosity. The daughters of men moved through their days with a grace.
So beautiful, I can almost taste the dust in the air.
Not the grace of angels, that cold, terrible perfection, but something warmer, something that ached. They planted seeds and sang while they worked. They wept at graves and laughed the very next morning.
We'll be all right. Remember that morning?
They loved with a recklessness that made eternity itself seem lonely by comparison. And the Watchers, standing at the edge of the observable world, began to lean closer. The Book of Enoch names them. Samyaza, their leader, a being of immense authority.
And dawn may never break.
Azazel, the most dangerous of them, whose mind moved like lightning across dry fields. 200 in total, 200 presences of staggering celestial power. all leaning toward the same impossible longing.
The time is upon
Samyaza
us.
was first to speak when others only dared to
I will
feel.
speak for all.
The silence that followed was not disapproval, it was collective recognition. Because every single one of them had felt the same longing all along. So he asked for an oath. "Swear to me," he said, "that we descend together, that none shall turn back." And on the summit of Mount Hermon, they bound themselves. With a vow no force in all of heaven had ever authorized. They descended, and when their feet touched the earth, the ground did not know what it was receiving. The watchers did not hide, they walked into human settlements openly. Their forms radiant enough to blind if stared at too long, their presence commanding enough to silence crowds. Mankind did not run from what arrived, mankind simply knelt before them. Because when something that beautiful steps into your world and looks at you, truly looks at you, the instinct is not fear, it is worship. And that was the first corruption. The first corruption was the moment humanity redirected its worship from the Creator to the created. The unions produced children, but these were not children in any sense the word had ever carried before. They came into the world already too large, already too hungry, already too aware of their own power. The Nephilim, Scripture introduces them with a restraint that feels almost deliberate. There were giants in the earth in those days, 7 words.
He sees us.
7 words to describe beings whose very shadow could swallow city walls. At first, humanity praised them. Songs were written in their honor. Their feats were carved into stone. Their names were given to mountains and rivers. But admiration has a shelf life, and when the Nephilim's hunger outgrew the world's capacity to feed it, admiration curdled into terror, and terror curdled into something far worse, submission. Because a people who have forgotten the name of their Creator have nothing left to stand behind. Azazel moved differently from the others. Where Samyaza desired connection, Azazel desired impact. He opened the vault of heavenly knowledge and poured it into human hands not ready to hold it.
This knowledge will consume you. We are ready.
He taught the forging of weapons, pulling iron from the earth into instruments of death. He revealed the secrets of adornment, how beauty could be weaponized, how desire could be engineered.
Yes, my queen.
Others brought forbidden arts, astrology that sought to manipulate the order of heaven.
The time for the great ritual arrives.
Knowledge descended like a flood before the flood, and mankind was force-fed power. Centuries before its character was ready to carry it, the result was not enlightenment.
What do we do now?
It was catastrophe wearing the mask of progress. Forests withered. Rivers ran strange courses. As if fleeing from what the land was becoming, animals gathered in anxious herds. At the edges of settlement, their instincts recoiling from the wrongness spreading through the soil. Even the sky dimmed as if ashamed to mirror what the earth had become. And then came the abominations, creatures born of experiments never meant for mortal soil. Half beast, half man, eyes that shimmered with a madness that had no earthly origin. Voices that drove listeners into delirium. Forms that moved in ways that made the watching mind recoil. Nature herself groaned. Creation recoiled. The balance of the world trembled on the edge of collapse. The Book of Enoch records something more haunting than any giant or monster. It says the earth itself cried out, not metaphorically, but as testimony. The earth, the soil, the rivers, the creatures that had no voice, cried out to heaven. Because no human voice was loud enough, or brave enough, or clean enough to do it. And heaven heard every cry that rose from the broken earth. In the quarters of the divine, a reckoning was being assembled. Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, among the line of Seth, the quiet ones, the forgotten ones, who still whispered the name.
Guide us back to the light.
There was a man whose footsteps carried a different sound. His name was Enoch. There is a kind of courage the world does not celebrate. Not the courage of the battlefield where the crowd watches and the drums roll, but the courage of the single voice, the one who speaks into silence.
I declare my purpose, my resolve unbroken by the void around.
So complete it feels less like silence and more like a wall. Enoch had that courage, and he needed every fragment of it. He was born into the line of Seth, the quiet descendants of Adam's third son. The ones history barely remembers because they did not build empires or carve their names into stone. They planted, they tended, they buried their dead with hymns and looked upward. And Enoch, from the time he could form words, seemed to carry something the others did not. A stillness, the kind that does not come from peace with the world, but from peace with something larger than the world. Scripture says it simply. He walked with God, not in metaphor, not in dream, but in communion. The way two people walk together who have run out of the need to explain themselves. In a world devoured by terror, he carried himself with the stillness of one who had glimpsed eternity.
He does not understand. Hurry!
The calling came without announcement. No burning bush, no pillar of fire, no voice shaking mountains. What they described as more intimate and more terrifying, the veil between worlds simply thinned. One evening as the sky bled bronze and the shadows of giants stretched long, Enoch felt the familiar world dissolve, not violently, the way salt dissolves in water. And he stood before something no human language was built to describe. A throne that pulsed like living fire, not the fire of wood and air, but the fire of pure existence, the kind that does not consume. Wings like lightning given patience, voices that did not come from mouths but from everywhere.
Enoch.
And from the center of the glory came a command, Enoch, son of Jared.
You are chosen.
Speak my judgment, for
You
the
will
measure
carry
is
the
full. Time has
Yes.
reached its end.
Yes.
He was shown everything. The sins of the watchers laid bare. Not as accusation but as simple terrible fact, the way a wound is shown to a physician. He was shown the violence of the Nephilim, their appetites grinding the earth down to dust. Their arrogance so complete it had ceased to recognize itself as arrogance, and begun to call itself simply nature. He was shown the cries of the oppressed,
Everything
The
is
farmers whose harvests had been stripped,
Where is
the
he?
mothers whose children had been consumed,
gone. You are walking
the elders whose
path to
careful
ruin.
warnings had
Listen
been
to
laughed
me now.
completely into silence.
Listen to the old fool. Don't make this mistake.
Their cries rising like smoke, then, persistent, impossible to ignore, all the way to the throne. He had not forgotten a single one of them. He never forgets. When Enoch returned to the world, he carried the weight of what he had seen. The way a vessel carries water, not as his own, but as something entrusted. He walked into marketplaces where merchants weighed grain beside the shadows of Nephilim fortresses. He stood in villages where people had learned to keep their eyes down.
Hear now
And he
the voice
spoke,
of the
"The
Eternal.
Most High has seen
the time
every
of
deed.
reckoning is upon
The
this
watchers
city.
will fall.
Repent or face the coming darkness. I speak
The
of the change
giants
to
will
come.
perish, and
It
the
cannot be
corrupted earth
denied,
will be
and it will
cleansed."
not wait for your agreement. Prepare for the signs. I tell
The
you,
reaction
this
was
city will
exactly
fall.
what
Turn
you would
now,
expect
before
from
it
a
is
world
too
that had
late.
worshipped power.
Listen to the old man blabber on. Pathetic.
Laughter, not the uncomfortable laughter of people who secretly suspect you might be right. The fall, contemptuous laughter of people who have decided that reality is only what they can touch.
This is all there is.
He speaks
Some called him
blasphemy.
mad, others called him dangerous, not
We will
because
not
they
have
feared
this
his words,
disruption. You are all
but
lost
because
in
a man
fear.
who fears nothing is the most disruptive presence a corrupt system can encounter.
Silence, old man.
Even those who believed him trembled, because belief is not the same as hope. You can believe a storm is coming and still have no idea how to survive it. But Enoch did not stop. His voice moved through that broken world. The way a river moves through stone, not by overpowering it, but by refusing to stop. And then, without warning, he was gone. Not slain, not buried, not mourned. Genesis records it with quiet understatement, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not. He was not, two words that contain a mystery theologians have circled for millennia. One moment a man stood on the earth, the next moment the earth held only his footprints. What does it mean that the most righteous man in the most corrupt age was not destroyed by the corruption, but removed from it entirely? What does it say about the nature of holiness, that it cannot be extinguished? Only translated. The world that mocked Enoch
was
kept
here.
waiting for his
he
defeat,
vanish?
We waited, but he isn't here.
and instead received his absence, which in its own way was the loudest sermon he ever preached. Heaven moved. Michael, the warrior, whose name means who is like God. A question disguised as a title, a challenge embedded in an identity. Raphael prepared the healing, because judgment without healing is only destruction. God's judgment has never been only destruction. It has always carried the seed of what comes after. Gabriel lifted the decree, and Uriel descended carrying the written sentence, and delivered it to the place where Enoch once stood, a silent testimony. The time of reckoning had arrived. Meanwhile, a different corruption spread beneath the surface. The ancient traditions speak of women who had sought out the watchers willingly. Not all of them victims, some drawn by the intoxicating feeling of being chosen. What was once their beauty became something else, Voices turned haunting, forms became illusions. Michael did
witnessed
not
God's
strike the
fall.
Nephilim with the sword.
Your reign
He
ends
whispered.
now, not with fire, but with stillness.
He moved through the camps of the Nephilim and planted the one seed no fortress can defend against. Distrust. Giants who had stood shoulder to shoulder turned and looked at each other. Their roars shook the plains. Their blood, thick, dark, unnatural, ran down riverbeds. They tore down the very citadels they had spent generations building. They crushed their own champions, and the earth groaned beneath the weight of their downfall. Those who had called themselves gods died like beasts. When the dust settled, only the watchers remained, silent, stripped of arrogance. Staring in silence into the vast void they had spent centuries constructing. Their punishment did not require elaborate ceremony, chains not forged from earthly metal. Forged from divine decree, which is the only material that cannot be broken by strength. They were cast into a depth darker than death, a prison where no sound reached. And no light dared enter, not because the light could not reach, but because light, in its wisdom, knows some things must be left in the dark. Above the world, a heavy silence descended, not the silence of peace. The silence that comes not from peace but from the breath before a storm. Creation waited, the sky tightened, the fountains of the deep stirred. For judgment had only begun, and now we follow the only man who still heard the voice of God in the gathering
Time is
storm.
at hand. Prepare for the journey.
There is something the Bible does not tell you about Noah. It does not tell you how long he stood there before he picked up the first tool. Because that pause between command and obedience is where the real story lies.
Keep working.
A man standing
The
in a
sign will
land that
come.
had never known rain.
Yes, Noah, we see you. Keep building.
Holding a blueprint for a vessel in a world that had no sea to sail. He believed, and somewhere between the command and the first strike of the hammer, he made a decision that would divide history into two halves. Noah was not extraordinary in the way the age celebrated extraordinary. He did not have the height of the Nephilim or the radiance of the Watchers. He was a man of the soil, a worker, a father, a keeper of quiet rhythms. Genesis describes him with 6 words. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations.
Keep working.
Perfect in his generations, not where perfection was easy or cost nothing.
a ship in the desert.
Keep working.
Perfect in his generations, meeting in the specific, terrible, corrupted world he actually lived in. The command came the way the most life-altering
heard you.
things always come.
The journey begins.
Not with fanfare, not with a gathering of crowds, but in the quiet register of a voice that speaks directly to the soul and leaves no room for misunderstanding. Make for yourself an ark, a vessel of
The time has
salvation in
come.
a land that had never known rain.
Build it here.
A sanctuary of wood in the middle of a barren plain. a message of judgment delivered through the hands of a single man. He lifted his hammer, he struck the first nail, and with every echoing blow, prophecy slowly took its shape in cedar and pitch and gopher wood. But the world laughed. They pointed and mocked. They called him a fool.
Mimics hammering. He thinks it's gonna flood.
You stand
A
alone
zealot,
in your
a
foolishness.
dreamer,
The
a
truth is
fool
defined
lost
by
in old
us.
forgotten tales.
As always.
Your defiance will not be tolerated.
And yet Noah continued, for faith is often loudest when the world is deaf. They called him insane right up until the sky began to change.
The sky is turning. Look at the clouds. Perhaps he was right.
Signs unfolded across creation. Animals by instinct older than mankind began to converge. Pairs and sevens marching toward the ark as though led by an invisible hand. The moon rose blood red, like an open wound in the sky. The winds reversed their course, but humanity danced harder and shouted louder. They worshipped the giants they once feared. The hour of mercy closed. Then came a moment described with chilling simplicity in the book of Genesis. And then, quietly and finally, the Lord himself shut Noah in. The door of the ark, heavy, immovable, sealed not by Noah's strength but by divine decree.
We're lost.
And when God closes a door, no man, no angel, no giant can force it open. On the 17th day of the second month, the sky door opened. Not rain as they had ever known it, not the gentle mist of morning, but water falling the way oceans fall, the way heaven itself empties. The ancient hidden fountains of the great deep burst violently open. Water from above, water from below, the world caught between two floods. And the ark lifted on the face of the rising waters. Not sinking, not breaking, rising, the way faith rises when the world collapses. For 40 days the rain did not pause, did not hesitate. The waters rose steadily until the highest mountains vanished beneath them. 15 cubits above the highest peak, the floodwaters covered the earth. Inside the sealed ark, the ordinary sounds of life quietly persisted. The breathing of animals, the prayers of a family, the creak of wood on water. Noah did not watch through a window. He trusted the one who had closed the door. 150 days, the waters held dominion over the earth. Then God remembered Noah, two words that have sustained believers across every age. He sent a wind over the earth, and the waters began to recede. And gently, at last, the ark came to rest on the mountains. The raven was said first, then the dove, who returned with an olive branch. And Noah knew the earth was healing, one small branch at a time. When the door opened and Noah stepped onto the cleansed earth, he did not speak for a long time. Some moments are larger than words. Then in the clearing sky, something appeared that had never been seen before. A bow stretched across the sky, not a weapon, but a promise.
The covenant
God
is
said,
declared,
I set my bow in the
not
cloud,
hope,
and it shall be
but
a sign.
binding promise spoken into the clearing sky.
A sign of the covenant between me and all the earth, forever. Think about that carefully the next time you see a rainbow. That arc of color is not merely scattered light through water droplets. It is the signature of a God who keeps his word. The world before the flood was not destroyed because God was cruel. It was destroyed because what it had become could not continue. Because the cries of the innocent had reached a God who does not ignore them. And because in every
age, the same
generation,
question.
God looks for the faithful
Is
ones.
there one who walks with me?
The ones willing to build darks in the desert when the sky's still clear. The question this story leaves with every one of us is simple.
This isn't history. This is now.
If God were to look for a faithful one in your generation, would he find you if you enjoyed this journey through the ancient world? Share it with someone who needs to remember that God has not forgotten them.